My name is Leo Thorne, and for most of my adult life, I believed that stillness was the same as peace. I was born and raised in Port Blossom, a city that lives under a perpetual blanket of soft gray clouds, where the scent of rain on pine needles is the region's unofficial perfume. My parents were librarians, quiet and gentle people who taught me the value of a well-ordered life. They loved routines, the comfort of the predictable, and the deep, abiding calm that comes from knowing exactly what the next day will bring. I inherited that from them. Or at least, I thought I had. I built my life on that foundation of stability. I got a degree in data science and took a respectable, secure job with the city's urban planning department, mapping out utility grids and traffic flows. I bought a modest but lovely cedar-shingled house on a hill overlooking the Willamette River, where I could watch the fog roll in each morning. It was a good life, a quiet life. And for 10 years, Clara was the centerpiece of it. When the lawyer slid the final divorce decree across the polished mahogany table, I watched Clara's face. A smile, bright and sharp, bloomed across her lips as she picked up the pen. It wasn't a triumphant smile, not exactly. It was a smile of relief, of a runner crossing a finish line she'd been sprinting towards for a very long time. In that moment, watching the fluid loop of her signature, I felt a profound quiet settle over me. It wasn't the peace I had mistaken for happiness during our marriage, nor was it the hollow ache of loss. It was the deep, expectant silence of a forest after a snowfall, when the world holds its breath, waiting for the sun. Clara and I had been married for a decade. From the outside, we were the picture of Port Blossom contentment. We hosted wine-tasting parties, took weekend trips to the coast, and our holiday cards always featured a photo of us smiling, arms wrapped around each other, with our golden retriever, Sam, at our feet. We had a rhythm, a script we both knew by heart. But in the quiet hours, after the friends had gone home and the wine glasses were washed, a different reality would emerge. The space in our bed grew wider each year, an invisible chasm carved by unspoken resentments and divergent dreams. The silences between us became heavier, no longer companionable, but weighted with things left unsaid. I first noticed the change in her about 2 years ago. It started small. Her phone, once left casually on the kitchen counter, was now always in her pocket or face down on the nightstand. She started attending late-night, networking events for her marketing firm, coming home smelling of expensive cocktails and a perfume that wasn't her own. She spoke of a new colleague, Julian, a charismatic business developer who was so brilliant and really understood her ambition. I wasn't a fool. I saw the signs, the tiny fractures in the facade of our life. But I didn't confront her. Not because I was weak, but because I understood, with a deep and aching certainty, that the marriage was already over. A confrontation would only be a performance, a dramatic scene in a play whose ending had already been written. The love we'd once had hadn't died in a blaze of glory. It had simply faded from neglect, like a photograph left in the sun. While Clara was busy cultivating a new life in the shadows of our old one, I had been quietly tending to a garden of my own. She had always seen me as her safe harbor. My steady Leo, she'd call me, with a fondness that, over the years, had begun to curdle into something like pity. In her eyes, I was reliable, predictable, and utterly devoid of the fire she craved. She saw my contentment as a lack of ambition, my quiet nature as a sign of a man who was happy to watch the world from the sidelines. She saw my 9-to-5 city job as the full measure of my potential. What she never saw, because she never truly looked, was the world I built when she was asleep or away at her conferences. In the small, windowless office in our basement, surrounded by servers humming a low, constant song, I wasn't just Leo Thorne, municipal data analyst. I was the founder and sole architect of Terralogics. Terralogics was born from my love for the patterns of the natural world. It began as a passion project, a way to apply my skills to something that mattered to me. I started by building sophisticated models to predict wildfire behavior using satellite imagery and climate data. Then, I developed algorithms to help conservation groups optimize reforestation efforts. It was intricate, demanding work that lit up my mind in a way my day job never could. I loved the silence of the code, the clean logic of the systems I was building. It was my sanctuary. I tried to share it with her once, early on. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open, excitedly showing her a visualization of soil moisture levels across the Cascade Range. Her eyes glazed over. She patted my hand and said, "That's nice, honey. It's good to have a hobby." A hobby. That one word, spoken so casually, was a door clicking shut. After that, I stopped trying to share it. Terralogics became my private world. As the climate crisis worsened, the demand for my models skyrocketed. I incorporated the business, funneling the profits into a holding company, reinvesting every cent. I worked with clients under non-disclosure agreements, building a reputation in a niche but incredibly valuable field. My hobby had quietly grown into an enterprise with a valuation that was nearing 8 figures. All the while, my city paycheck was deposited into our joint account, covering the mortgage and the groceries, maintaining the illusion of the steady, unremarkable life Clara believed we were living. I wasn't hiding it to deceive her, not at first. I was protecting it. It was the one part of my life that was truly mine, untainted by her gentle condescension and bored sighs. The day she told me she wanted a divorce, we were sitting on our back deck, watching the river flow below. The sky was the color of slate. "Leo," she began, her voice soft, rehearsed. "I don't think I'm happy anymore. I feel like I need more. More excitement, more passion. We've just grown into different people." She was right. We had. She had grown into a person who chased the bright, loud, and shiny, and I had grown into a person who found his world in the quiet, complex, and meaningful. I just nodded. "Okay, Clara." Her brow furrowed. She had been prepared for a fight, for tears, for desperate pleas. My calm acceptance seemed to unnerve her more than any outburst would have. "Okay, that's it. If you're not happy," I said, looking out at the water, "then this isn't working. I want you to be happy." And I meant it. The part of me that had once loved her still wished her well, even if I knew her happiness no longer included me. The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and polite, sterile conversations with lawyers. Clara moved out and into a sleek downtown apartment with Julian. She posted photos of their new life-clinking champagne glasses on rooftop bars, weekend getaways to wine country. She was performing her liberation for an audience on social media, and from what our mutual friends told me, she was telling everyone how amicable the split was and how generous she was being by not taking me to the cleaners. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Ms. Albright, clearly had a different idea. The initial settlement offer was staggering. Clara wanted the house, its value having tripled since I'd bought it years before our marriage. She wanted lifelong spousal support, citing the lifestyle to which she had become accustomed and her emotional labor in supporting my career. My career as a mid-level city employee. It was a fantasy, a narrative constructed to justify taking everything. My lawyer, a quiet, methodical man named Mr. Davies, reviewed their proposal. "This is aggressive," he said, peering at me over his glasses. "Are you sure there's nothing else they should know about?" I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. "It's time." We didn't go to court. Mr. Davies suggested mediation as a calmer, more private alternative. We all met in a neutral conference room in a downtown office building. The room was beige and impersonal, with a large window that looked out onto a sky heavy with rain. Clara sat opposite me, looking impeccable in a cream-colored blazer. She gave me a small, sad smile, as if we were allies enduring this unpleasantness together. Ms. Albright sat beside her, a binder full of financial demands open before her. The mediation began cordially. The mediator, a gentle-voiced woman, outlined the goals for the day. Ms. Albright began by presenting their case, painting a picture of Clara as a supportive wife who had put her own ambitions on hold to foster my stable but limited career, thus entitling her to the lion's share of our assets. I listened patiently, my hands resting on the table. There was no anger in me, only a deep sense of finality. This was the last act. When it was our turn, Mr. Davies didn't argue or raise his voice. He simply opened a folder and began. "We are in agreement regarding the division of the joint savings account and the personal property," he said calmly. "However, there seems to be a significant misunderstanding regarding Mr. Thorne's financial situation." Ms. Albright's expression tightened. "If you're referring to his pension with the city, we have already accounted for that." "No," Mr. Davies said, sliding a document across the table. "I'm referring to his primary source of income." Clara leaned forward, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. Ms. Albright picked up the paper. It was the Certificate of Incorporation for Terralogics, LLC, dated 2 years before our wedding. She then picked up the next document, the holding company's registration. Finally, Mr. Davies placed a multi-page financial statement on the table. Terralogics is a private technology firm owned solely by Mr. Thorne, he explained. It specializes in environmental data modeling. As of the last fiscal quarter, its assets and intellectual property are valued at approximately $14 million. The silence in the room was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the faint hiss of the rain against the window. I looked at Clara. The color drained from her face. Her confident posture collapsed, her shoulders slumping as if under an immense weight. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. It was a slow-motion shattering, not of greed, but of an entire worldview. The man she had pitted, the steady Leo she had outgrown, was a stranger. The life she had discarded as dull and small was suddenly, dizzyingly vast. "What?" she finally whispered, her eyes wide, fixed on me. "What is he talking about?" Ms. Albright, recovering quickly, cleared her throat. "Your Honor, I mean, Madam Mediator. This is unexpected. If these assets were acquired during the marriage, they were not," Mr. Davies interjected smoothly, producing another document. "The business was founded and legally structured by Mr. Thorne prior to the marriage. As per the prenuptial agreement that both parties signed on October 14, 2012, all pre-existing separate assets, and any growth thereof, remained the sole property of the original owner. The prenup. We had signed it at my father's quiet insistence. At the time, all I had to my name was the down payment for the house and a few thousand in savings. It had seemed like a quaint formality. Clara had laughed about it, calling it romantic. I'm sure she'd forgotten it ever existed. Now, her face was a canvas of disbelief and dawning horror. She turned to me, her eyes pleading, searching for some sign that this was a joke, a cruel trick. "Leo? A prenup? Your hobby?" And for the first time, I spoke directly to her. My voice was even, devoid of malice. "I tried to share it with you, Clara," I said softly. "Years ago. You called it my little project. You weren't interested. So I built it on my own." The truth of those words hung in the air between us, undeniable. It wasn't an accusation. It was a simple statement of fact, a quiet echo of 100 small dismissals, 1,000 moments of disinterest that had, over time, built a wall between us. In her quest for a bigger, more exciting life, she had never bothered to look at the world I was quietly building right beside her. The rest of the mediation was a formality. The house, which I had purchased before the marriage, was my separate property as stipulated in the agreement. The joint account was split. She would keep her car and her own investments. There would be no spousal support. When it was over, Clara looked utterly broken. Not by the loss of money, I realized, but by the complete and total demolition of the reality she had constructed. She hadn't just lost a settlement. She had lost the narrative where she was the one who had left a small man for a bigger world. The truth was, she had left a world she never even knew existed. I walked out of the building into the soft port blossom drizzle. The air felt clean, washed new. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt a quiet, melancholic freedom. The weight of pretending, of shrinking myself to fit into the box she had built for me, was finally gone. In the months that followed, I quit my city job. I moved out of the big house on the hill, selling it and pouring the money into a conservation fund. I found a smaller place, a loft downtown with exposed brick walls and a view of the Fremont Bridge, its steel arches rising into the mist. I bought Sam a bed that he loved, and we settled into a new, simpler routine. My days are now filled with the work that I love. I spend my mornings coding and my afternoons in meetings with scientists and nonprofit directors, people whose eyes light up when we talk about our work. The company is growing. We're hiring a small team. The name Terralogics has started to appear in environmental journals and tech news. It's a different kind of success than Clara ever envisioned: quiet, purposeful, and deeply fulfilling. About a month ago, I received a letter. The envelope was plain, with my name and address written in Clara's elegant, looping script. I opened it with a strange sense of calm. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Leo, I don't know how to say this, or if I even have the right to. The last few months have been humbling. I have been forced to look at myself, at the story I told myself about our life together, and to see how wrong I was. I was so focused on what I thought was missing that I never saw what was right in front of me. It wasn't about the money. Not really. It was that you had a whole world inside you that I never asked about. I am so sorry for that. For my blindness. I hope you are happy. I hope your work brings you everything you deserve. Clara, I read the letter twice, then folded it and placed it on my desk. There was no anger, no lingering bitterness. Just a quiet sadness for the two young people we had once been, who had started with so much hope and had simply lost their way. Her apology didn't erase the past, but it softened the edges of it, turning a painful chapter into a lesson learned. Sometimes, growth isn't a loud, dramatic transformation. Sometimes, it's a quiet, internal shift. It's about learning to respect your own passions, even when no one else does. It's about building your own world, not for applause or for validation, but for the simple, profound joy of creating something meaningful. It's about setting boundaries not to punish others, but to protect your own peace. Tonight, the rain is tapping a gentle rhythm on my window. Sam is asleep at my feet, and on my screen, a new set of data is forming a beautiful, complex pattern. The stillness I feel now isn't empty. It's full. It's the stillness of a man who finally knows his own worth, who has found his place not in the reflection of someone else's eyes, but in the quiet, steady work of his own hands. And for the first time in a very long time, it feels exactly like peace.